Today, we bring you a pretty important aspect of B2B industry, that is preventing customer churn, and we'll tell you how AI will be helping you in driving retention. So I introduce you to our panel for the day, Mohana Bhrigubanda and Priyabrata Roy. So Mohana, Priyo, the floor is yours. So maybe we can kick it off with your introductions first.
Yeah, thanks, Dave. Okay, first of all, thank you all for joining. Good afternoon, and thank you all for joining. Welcome to our third episode in the series of our future of revenue ops. I'm Mohana Brugubanda. I'm Senior Vice President at Polestar. I head technology and software industry at Polestar. Today with me, I have Priyabrata Roy, who is our analytics and data science consultant, and I work closely with Priyabrata on bringing analytics solutions to our B2B SaaS companies. So what will I do is as I said, right, this is the third episode of the series. For the interest of everyone joining now, so for the people who are joining here for the first time, what I would like to do is I would like to give a very short glimpse of what we have covered in episode 1, where we introduced RevOps, what is revenue operations, etc. Why is it helpful? And then the next episode we covered a lot on market mix modeling. My intent is not to cover all the topics there. But I'll give you a glimpse of what we covered. And again, if you are interested in knowing more about any of these previous episode topics, please drop a note to us on the chat so that we should be able to share the videos from the previous presentation with you guys. And then once we do the recap, we will go into the topic of today, which is we'll focus is more on customer churn, how to identify customer churn, how to prevent it. That will lead to more customer retention. That's the definitely topic of the day for us. We'll talk about why it is important. And then we will share a few benchmarks to see where your company stands against the industry as a whole. As a benchmark, you can compare it against similar companies, industry or industry as a whole. We'll share some of those. And then we will go into the topic of how to predict churn, right? What is the process behind it, right? What are the key parameters to consider? And also we will talk about a customer case study where we have done this implementation live for a customer. And Priyabrata will cover those two topics for you. And then coming to Q&A, if you have please type in your questions in the chat window again. We will take it up at the end of the webinar, and we will hope to answer all your questions then. Okay. So that being said, let's go into the recap of RevOps. So in the first episode of RevOps, right, we introduced the topic of revenue operations. So what revenue operations is, right? In a nutshell, it's nothing but all the revenue related functions like your marketing, sales, customer success, working together in unison. I mean, in today's world, everybody has a marketing department, a sales department, customer success department, right? But the importance of revenue operations is bringing all these three departments together with a similar goal of driving revenues, right? Driving revenue growth and enhancing your process efficiencies and improving customer experience. And why it is important is it brings a team alignment across these functions, which will translate into a very seamless journey for your customer, right? From lead generation to customer retention, it will create a very seamless journey when you share information across functions and work towards the customer success as one big unit, right? And then again, topic of data, when you collect data from all these different functions, you can bring it together, you can paint a holistic picture of the customer, you can see the customer behavior, trends, etc. That will help you, again, improve the customer satisfaction and the business performance overall. And then collaboration, like it talked a minute ago, it will break down the silos between these functions so that we all work together in a more cross-functional collaborative environment towards the same goal. And this all leads to a better customer service, right? When you know your customer, right from the awareness to the retention, that gives you a better opportunity for you as a company to serve your customers better. And these are the very prominent, what you call the prominent benefits of revenue ops, but also a hidden benefit is scale, right? Now, B2B companies, as you are very aware of, has grown exponentially in the last 4 or 5 years because of the pandemic, where a lot of companies adopted digital transformation, and it was primarily driven by B2B SaaS companies, right? So scale is a major part of it. So the benefit of RevOps is when you create a standardized processes that can grow with you as a company, the processes grow as the company grows. That's definitely a bigger benefit as an organization. And then we did cover about more AI use cases across the journey of the customer, from a buying cycle to the sales cycle, etc., from awareness to retention. We did again. The idea is in the series of these episodes, we will take fewer topics like these and cover in detail, like we did in episode 2, market mix modeling. This topic, today we'll be covering more customer churn and retention. And then the subsequent topics, we might go into more on the sales transformation, etc. So that was recap from episode 1. Quickly on recap from episode 2, we covered about a topic of market mix modeling, because now you have a proliferation of channels that you can reach to a customer on, like be it Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, any other social media, right? There's a lot of complexity in the channel, like where you spend your money, where is the ROI of your ad spend on this channel or that channel. There's definitely a lot of challenges there. And we talked about key metrics that most of the marketing organizations are using today to measure the success in the marketing space, which can be a customer acquisition cost and lifetime value, which we will cover a little bit in detail in today's session. And then return on investment, churn rate, etc. Again, churn rate is which we are going to go in detail in today's discussion. And then we presented to you about how we presented the thought process on marketing spend. Like you have a set goal of making the numbers, like say certain $1 million in sales. How for that, to achieve that, right? How do your marketing budget should look like based on the effectiveness of the channel, where you allocate your budget across channels to get a better performance out of your marketing. We did cover these with a demo of a product called Profit Pulse. Again, for whomever has more interest in this topic, please drop us a note. We'll be happy to connect with you and probably set up some follow-up conversations on it. So that wraps up our episode 1 and 2. Okay, so now we will cover why is customer retention important, right? Not only for B2B SaaS companies, but all companies in general. But today we will focus more on the B2B SaaS industry, because that's where we do a majority of our work on the customer retention side, right? So if you see, right, in current world, right, again, as I said, from the proliferation of digitization across companies, again, the proliferation of a lot of B2B SaaS companies, it's becoming the brand loyalty or customer loyalty has dipped, and then the switching cost from one company or one product to other has gone down significantly. So that is posing a challenge for a lot of the B2B SaaS companies on retention, right? How do you retain your customers for a longer duration of time? Similarly, with a lot of competition around, you need to differentiate yourselves better. So you have spent a lot of money on marketing and sales. That in turn actually is bumping up the customer acquisition cost, right? And then the next comes a big challenge in some of the customers we are working with, the adoption of the product. That leads to a slow growth of the existing customers, which leads to a lower customer satisfaction. Again, if you see, right, all these problems, some of these problems that B2B SaaS companies are facing are in showing us in the direction of how do you want to know your customer better, right? Again, if you see that your customer is not using the product as regularly as he or she is supposed to, then there is a red flag, right? How early we can detect that. So hence the importance of churn prediction for a SaaS company, right? It helps you in like answer significant questions, right? First of all, why customers have stopped doing business with you, meaning it's your company, right? And the flip side of the coin is why the other customers stayed and are expanding their subscriptions or purchases. These are like two sides of the coin, right? Some customers are leaving, some are staying back. So it's really important for us to understand, right? Why is this on both sides of the side, right? Like, what are there any precursors that can spot where the existing customers are leaving, right? And how can we act, right? How can we see that, hey, some customer is leaving us minus 1 month, minus 2 months, and see how we can have actions put in place to retain these customers, right? And also, after the churn happened, right, the customer left you, what are some of the ways that actually bring the customer back, right? So it's like an example. I know this is more about B2B companies that most recently the lot of digital streaming are subscribed to. Reading a recent example in the B2C space, right? When I went to cancel a subscription on one of my streaming channels, they immediately had me offer saying that, hey, don't worry about it. I know things change, but here is an offer for you, right? Like, enjoy our subscription for only $2 a month for the next 6 months, right? That literally costs you nothing. So that made me stay back. Instead of canceling my subscription, I said, okay, fine, $12 for 6 months is not bad. Let's continue. So there are a lot of ways a company can think about retaining the customers. Right, with all the insights you get from this exercise of understanding why the customers are leaving, why they are staying back, you can definitely improvise on your customer retention, right? If you see what are the factors that affecting it, you have a game plan to tackle those factors and say, okay, if I tweak my customer support, if I give better customer support, my retention will go up. So those are the factors as a company we can always work on. So this will lead to improving customer retention. Again, allocation of smarter resource allocation, meaning allocating your maybe high performing customer success reps to high risk, high value customers so that they can retain them. And also it gives you insights about your product as well, right? What kind of product has more retention, or what kind of features within the product are getting utilized more and more. So that can go as a feedback loop to your R&D or product teams, right? So that's what, like, having a good churn analysis, insights, or prediction process, whatever we can call them, is so significant to not only retaining the customers, increasing the customer's satisfaction, and also improving your product as a whole. So we'll cover a bit on, I'll quickly browse through 4 benchmarks we want to show you, right? The first one is on the churn rate. We talked about churn, but see, my company has, say, 10% churn. If somebody comes and says, is it good or bad, right? There is always things like benchmarking, like you say, okay, 10%, and I'm in the analytics and marketing technology space as a SaaS company. Okay, 10% looks not that bad because the overall is 16%. Or if I am in a fintech, oh, it looks higher than the industry average. So these are some of the industry benchmarks that you can try to compare where your company is, where the overall industry is looking at. And this is at a very high level, right? At a industry or sub-segment level. We can drill further down to the growth rate of the companies, right? If you see some companies are growing faster than the other companies, that would be the right hand of this curve of this table, where there is intuitively there might be more customer churn happening because you are acquiring customers at a rate that is significantly higher than any other company. You might have a higher churn rate. And also on the opposite side of it on the left-hand side, right? Where if you are not growing your company at all, your company is not growing, then again, it's very intuitive that your customer churn is higher because there are a lot of customers are leaving you, right? But in the middle layer where are companies that are focusing on growth as well as focusing on retaining their existing customers, that where you generally see your churn rates are lower, like a 3%, 4% churn rates. Again, this is a general benchmark at what the industry is today. Again, for your company, it can be a high growth company or it can be a very stabilized growth company. You can always try to benchmark your company against the industry benchmarks and see how we are doing. Right. Similarly, we talk about customer acquisition costs a lot. So here are some of the benchmarks we have across the industries, right? If we try to sub-segment it across SaaS industries, e-commerce, fintech, insurance, hospitality, etc. If you see, right, I think some you see can be very intuitive. E-commerce, yes, lower CAC, but fintech, probably the ticket size is higher. Your subscription values are higher. So generally your customer acquisition costs might be higher, right? If you can, again, you put your company where your sub-industry is, you try to see where you benchmark your company against the CAC. But other thing I would say is customer acquisition cost on its own, it gives you just a half of the story, right? But if you overlap it against the customer lifetime value, right? Like that gives you, I would say, a complete picture on, hey, I'm spending $1 on acquiring the customer. Am I making only 50 cents on this customer, or we are making $4, $6 on this customer? So that's if you compare these two, right? If you put side by side as a ratio, that gives you a more complete picture on your customer acquisition cost to the customer lifetime value. This is where the importance of retaining customers play a big factor. Right here in this table, if you see the ideal scenario, we say it is 4-1, meaning for every dollar you spend acquiring a customer, you should be able to make $4 $4 in revenues. Right, that's the ideal scenario. Again, maybe if you are more focusing on transactional or short-term profits, that might be a higher ratio for you. Versus if you are on the ratio of 0.5 or 1-1, you need to think about what are the ways you can try to expand the wallet share of the customer with you, and also how to retain the customer for longer duration of time. So those are some of the benchmarks we wanted to share with you on customer acquisition cost, churn rate, CLV, etc. Now comes to the place where, okay, we talk a lot about predicting churn. How do you do it? What is the process behind it? What are the parameters needed? So I'll turn it over to Priyo to walk us through the process and the parameters and the customer case study. Priyo, over to you.
Thanks, Mona. Thanks a lot. Hi, everyone. So yeah, Mona, can you move to the next slide? So churn prediction involves data analysis and supervised machine learning techniques to identify customers at risk of discontinuing their subscription or service. Now, when we talk about the whole process, like how the whole process happens, we all know, like every solution starts with data. That data can be a blend of customer data, product data, marketing data, usage data, etc. So when you do that, like the next step is like predicting churn. Like it has multiple steps, like defining the problem, like classification and regression, like classification being whether the customer will churn or not, while the regression being when the customer will churn. So clearly, like then do some cleaning, like some feature engineering, like some regression models or random forest, the model, and then you deploy it. The next step is value estimation. This is basically nothing but assigning values against customers and segment the idea. Segment the idea. The idea behind is like developing something like kind of forecast for matrix, like how like low risk, low risk, high value customers or high risk, low value customers, where obviously the focus will be on high risk, high value customers, and so on. Then comes the visualization part, and the inception of prescriptive analytics begins. where we basically define the strategy and decide the call for action, which is basically a feedback loop. So can you go for the next slide? So next we talk about like what kind of parameters required. Like it depends, it varies from time to time depending on the industry. Majorly revolves around like company details, their usage patterns, like subscription data, interaction history. You can take, for example, company details, like how many, the number of licenses that the company is providing for their employees. Usage pattern, like how frequent the product usage is, how the employees are using the product, what's their timing of using the product. Billing data or subscription data, for example, what kind of tenure the customer is there, whether it's a monthly, whether it's a quarterly, it's annual subscription, and lastly, what kind of interaction history, for example, how fast a ticket is getting resolved, how the support response time is there. So these things do contribute a lot when you do a churn prediction. So yeah. So yeah, next we basically delve into one of our customers case study. We did so basically where we implemented our churn prediction model. So the client is one of the global SaaS B2B leader in CRM business, where they were into market providing different solutions and enhancing their sales, enhancing their marketing activity and customer satisfaction. Basically, our client was struggling with the low retentions, mapping like product features to their specific needs of the industry, and which was affecting their recurring revenue. So they were also like struggling with higher acquisition cost and like difficulty in scaling while maintaining their revenue, also maintaining their cost, and this kind of challenges were really bothering them. So we implemented a churn prediction model for them. So next, I think we will move to one of the demos, case studies we have done. So let me quickly share my screen.
Yeah, I'll stop sharing my screen. Yeah, why don't you take it over? Yeah.
Sure. Good. So yeah, so we switch to the dashboard basically. Although we created multiple modules for our client, but this one is for the executive ones, mostly for C-suite executives and top management leaderships. The features, as you can see, these features are fully customizable and interactive in nature. You can see the static variables above, like which will give you a high level understanding of the health of your existing customers. You can filter it through different region. You can filter it through company size, through your payment or tenure categories and all. As you can see, like for example, it is focusing highly on 2-3 variables basically, which are majorly contributing towards the churn. For example, whether the support response time is higher or not, how long the customer is with the company, how long is they are doing the business with the company, whether they have completed the product training or not, whether they have subscribed, what the subscription is kind of look like, whether it's a quarterly or multi-year annually, and also there is a glimpse of your customer. So it's in completely interactive, while we can just click on churn and it will show the churn results accordingly. Like for example, like this, it will quickly develop for the churn purpose, and you can see the characteristics of the churn customers. So this dashboard can be it can be worked like monthly or quarterly or annual basis, but for demo purpose we have kept it in quarterly basis. So I think we will
So
quickly.
if I may add here, right, Priyo,
Sure.
I'll pitch in because so I like this dashboard very much, right? Because it what you do is it clears the noise for you and gives you the insights that needed for a executive team, right? We can go deeper into grassroots. The table there we show for the people who really want to get their hands dirty and look at it. But for everybody else, right? For executive team, when you look at it, you do all the analysis in the back end. Now you see, oh, that stands out is from this churn. I see from this dashboard, I see the churn rate is 26.5, right? I'm sure this is high. Any industry, right? This is a definitely high churn rate. And because of that, boom, we are losing say, around $5 million in revenue. Okay, so these are two red flags that quickly come up to the exec team and say, okay, now we know what is the gravity of the situation, right? We are definitely losing a lot of customers and a lot of revenues. Now let's go see why we are doing that. So where Priyo has mentioned it beautifully, right? The way we created this dashboard, again, it more descriptive on the descriptive side. You highlight not all the 10, 15 features that went into the model, but what from the modeling, what you see that what are the significant, like 4 or 5 significant parameters, features that are affecting your customer churn. That Priyo and team were able to showcase to the leadership here and say, you know what, if your customers are leaving because some of the customers they more than 10 hours for anybody to respond, they got frustrated and they are leaving. And similarly, they did not get any training on the product. Then how are they supposed to use the product, right? It's very intuitive. If you see that, right, the appears very intuitive. But again, you will not be able to comprehend this without crunching the data, bringing data from different categories, right? Customer, marketing, sales, etc., and paint this picture, right? Similarly, if the subscription type is quarterly, yes, because there is no like what the loyalty there. That's where the churn is higher too. So how do you convert these customers into your longer term customers, right? I mean, I feel that this is a really great dashboard that got really good feedback from the CXOs. That this at a glimpse, it shows you, hey, what's going on in my company from a churn perspective. Go ahead,
Yeah.
Priya.
Yeah, and the essence of it, like it's fully customizable. Like you can just say what you want to see it, which kind of features are like more contributing, and it will just give you like that. So yeah, quickly I will stop sharing and we will move to the PPT.
Cool. Let me share my screen again so that you have your thing. Okay. Now we'll move to the next slide. But while we showed you the descriptive side of things, now we will talk about the predictive side of things.
Yes. Here comes the interesting part actually. Like this is part. It's this part of we're talking about the predictive part of the churn prediction. So basically, here what you are seeing basically a glimpse of your customer data, different companies, the region with their company size, subscription type, with what's the contract value, product utilization rate, product training whether they opted or not, and it is mapping to the churn probability. What's the percentage of churning of that customer? For example, let's take an example, the fourth one. For example, the company is a mid-sized company, which is the subscription type is multi-year, and its contract value is high. But you can see that like the churn probability is much lower. So because that is also mapping with they have accepted the product training, and that is much lower. So you can prioritize the other one, that is the just third one, just before the mid company, that is from the AMER region, that is the large company size, its subscription is annual, contract value is lower, but you can see that the customer, the churning probability is 91.39%. So you act on them. So this kind of probability not only give you a holistic idea of which kind of customers are churning, but also it lets you prompt like what should we do to stop the churning. So it will give you a preemptive idea of what you should do for your customer, where you're lacking, and get back to your team and do something for it to stop the churn, because at the end of the day it's a loss for your revenue. So next slide.
This is good. I think just looking at it, right, it's great insight is, again, if you go back to the 2x2, right, what you pointed out, Priyo, is that the customer, which is large size, which is meaning the customer lifetime value could be higher, right? But the probability of churn is higher too. So this is the customer where you want to put your best efforts to retain this customer, right? So definitely, this is great insight. Okay, next slide.
Yeah, so this slide is all about what the findings from our model and what were the recommendation of it. So we found that like the CRM complexity was actually leading to low adoption, and it was evident because the training programs were in the targeted companies, they were not adopted. So what we recommended basically targeted training programs. We recommended, why don't you do webinars? Why don't you do personalized onboarding training with employees? That will help a lot, to adopt the product. So we also find the product integration issue with the basically with the current ecosystem. So every company has a different ecosystem, and the right product fit to their ecosystem is essential for success of any CRM. So what we suggested, like, why don't you increase and enhance integration capabilities? or why don't you create user-friendly guides? Like, you can also create user-friendly guides for uh, different target audiences, and you can actually customize it. So that will help a lot for the employees, like, for adopting the product. Also, for example, there is infrequent login early days. So that is an important pattern we have observed. For example, uh, if an employee is infrequent login in early 30 days, so that is a signal that the customer is not interested in the product. And what you can do for that, you can actually create an early warning system. So whenever there is a that kind of pattern, when there is an infrequent login, and that early warning system will activate, and it will trigger the actually CRM side company to proactively reach them, do whatever it's needed, provide them with different resources to where is the issue, understanding what their problem is, why they are not actually using the product, why the usage time is low. And finally, also another finding was limited customer success interaction with the user. That was crucial, because when you deploy customer success team, scaling it up accordingly, also keeping your costs low is kind of very difficult. So we recommended, why don't we do one thing, you now you have the churn prediction now and know which customers are going to churn, so you can easily identify high value customers, and you can target your resources to that, rather than targeting low value customers. So why don't you do that? So these are kind of an incredible recommendations, and the company was actually appreciated a lot. So while we are
So
completing this, there, I was just thinking, there's a saying, if it doesn't make a dollar, it doesn't make a sense. Like in organization, often the questions comes how accurately you can predict retention, how accurately you can predict expansion rates, what are our stickiest features? We can look at different metrics, but can you tie it back to revenue recognition? So at essence of this kind of churn prediction and this kind of dashboard, you can not only answer those kind of questions, but also act on them. And that's the beautiful part of it. Back to you, Mona.
this is amazing, because the findings, what I'm seeing is it's more on the findings where the effective utilization of the team. That's where we are doing some implementations of Gen AI as well, because now you have limited number of resources from a customer service or success perspective, right? So now you have this insight. So what we are doing with some of the customers is we are implementing Gen AI as a chatbot, right? It can be, you can ask questions and say, hey, I'm not able to use this product, on what is the feature on this, how can you use this feature? So Gen AI can actually come back and say, hey, here you go, this is how you actually log here, click here, you can use this product or create a lead here, potential here, etc., right? So that's where we can use AI here to predict, and also Gen AI can be part of the solution, right? Where you can create these chatbots to help relieve the customer support of the first level of touch, right? First touch, it can answer the questions, and the more complex the issues are, that's when there can be a human interaction and can be a white glove service for the customers. So, in a whole, right? So we talked about why churn is important for SaaS companies, because the costs are going higher, retention takes precedence over everything, right? And then how to do it. Priya walked us to the process of classification, right? Segmenting the customers, low risk, high risk, low value, high value, and then identifying, doing a more descriptive analytics to show the lay of the land to execs or any other team members, and then implement the prescriptive side of things, like, hey, we know that this is going to happen, what we can do now. So that pretty much wraps up our webinar for today. Thanks again for being part of this series.